My name is Brian. Here, H-E-E-R. And I am the owner of a company called Stretch Zone. Stretch on your own, don't get me wrong. I think everybody should stretch every single day. But we're almost always doing it wrong. We don't know where we're starting from or what muscles we're trying to go after, and that's what I want to dive into today. Symptoms are about imbalance between left and right or front to back. Every time. Coming back, let me go back to what we just said. How many people have lower front pain? Nobody. Everybody's got lower back because we're leaning forward and the muscles in the back are going, please, I'm trying to pull you back upright, and you keep going forward. If we all walked around like this all day, our lower abdomen would hurt all the time too. And I will touch on at the end some at-home stretches you can do for yourself. Okay? So, and I will send a copy of this to you guys as an email, so you don't have to necessarily like write everything down. I love that she's got her notepad and her pen ready. That's a good student right there. If you, before I go farther, get into an 8, 9, or 10, it'll still make you feel flexible. It's what most people do. But it only makes you feel flexible for the day. And then tomorrow you wake up and your brain says, I'm not falling for that again. I won't let that happen again. And you tighten up even more. That's why people fight their flexibility rather than work with it. So the neurology is great. You know, there's been so many advents in technology, right? Like things that make our life quicker and easier. But with every advent in technology, we have some price to pay. That makes sense? This is an advent in just understanding that makes your life better. It takes over 300 muscles just to stand upright. And we only have about 639 total muscles in the body. So half of your muscles at any given moment are being used just to stay upright against gravity. I know that Greek and Latin words always confuse and probably put people to sleep. So I want to make sure you understand what these words mean. When I was in school for becoming a doctor, one of the school classes was medical terminology. And the professor said, you know, the whole purpose of why doctors use Latin words is to confuse patients enough that they just blindly believe what they tell them, which I think is crazy in this day and age, right? So if you break the words down, it makes it a lot easier to understand what they do. So the big ones for the neck, you know, we all have flexion, extension, lateral flexion, and rotation. They're really the only motions that exist in any part of the body. So it's really easy to figure out which one's a problem. The scalenes are the muscles that are in the front of your neck. When these get really shortened, we spend so much time. How many of you guys have one of these things? If you had a bicep, if I was lifting a weight, I can do that maybe 20, 30 times in a minute or two, and I'm like, okay, I am tired. That's not how the postural muscles work. And that's really why chronic pain is almost always from a postural muscle. You know, the talk's title is solutions, not just patches, right? Like, we have to think long term. If you're going to live on this earth for any length of time, you better have a plan. How many of you guys thought you would ever make it to this age? Most of you were probably like, I'm never going to make it to be like my grandparents. No way, right? If somebody had told us a long time ago, we could have probably mitigated it a little bit more. But here's the great news about flexibility. It is not age or time dependent. We have 3 hamstring muscles. If the right outside muscle is the one that's the problem, and we just bend down to touch our toes, we're going to go as far as that tightest muscle will go. We're not even stretching the other 2 that are already sort of loose. And the big thing with flexibility that I've learned is it's not even about being able to touch the floor or being able to be a split and a ballerina and all, right? Like that is great, but those are like parlor tricks. The reality is you just want to be equal. If you're bad, be equally bad on the right as you are on the left, and you'll never have pain. I'm not going to encourage you to go get worse on both sides, but if you're good, get the good to be just as good as the other side. This is the intensity scale we use in the studio so that you're always in control of your stretch, so that it's not uncomfortable and so that it is effective. You can use this on your own. This is a secret that I'm not supposed to share with you, but it's not that crazy of a secret. I think we all have the common sense to know that we should probably start at a light stretch before we go to a good deep stretch, right? Here's the thing, we were all raised in a mindset that no pain, no gain was important for growth. We learned that in our high school, our coaches for our teams. It said it on the wall in some people's gyms, right, on a banner. That is very true for cardiovascular fitness. It's very true for muscle building. You have to get a little uncomfortable and partially tear a little bit of the muscle every time you lift a weight in order for it to want to grow stronger. That does not apply for flexibility. I'll give you a good analogy. If the fire alarm came on in here, it could be the battery. It's a possibility there's something wrong with the power, right? It's not a fire detector, it's a smoke detector. It detects smoke, not the fire, right? Smoke is the effect of a fire. Symptoms are the same way in our body. A symptom is not the cause. A symptom is not the problem. It's something that our brain intelligently erects to let us know something's wrong so that we stop doing what offends that particular body part. Stretching is not just for athletes. That's another myth, right? I'm not going to run a marathon. Why should I stretch? It's not just for people with pain. It's a great thing for fixing problems like pain because it's the muscles that hurt. We all know, right? Like if we're hurting, I've told you I was a chiropractor a long time. People would come in, their x-rays would be terrible, bone on bone, degeneration, discs that were just gone. But they could get to be a pain-free life again. So what does that tell you? Is it the degeneration that drives their symptoms, or is it the muscles that are trying to compensate and do a job they're not meant to do? If you take anything away from today, take that. If a muscle hurts, it's doing a job it's being recruited to do that it doesn't normally have to do. Think about this. How much do you think your head weighs? Depends on how heavy your thoughts are. But the average head is 10 to 12 pounds. So it's a bowling ball, literally. Do you mind if I use your cane for it? Think about if this was my neck, and I had to put a bowling ball on top of it. If it's directly upright, I don't have to use my arms very much. Gravity is doing the work for me. The force is going down through to the floor. So it's just sitting there, especially if I just let it like that, on top of it. For every inch I put that out in front of me, these muscles, like the neck muscles, are going, trying to pull it back all the time. No wonder our neck hurts. And then think about that. If it's another 10 pounds per square inch, then if you have 5 inches of forward head posture and your head already weighs 10 pounds, now it's 50 or 60 pounds that you're having to hold up all day. Makes sense? So as I say that, I want you to revisit where you're sitting right now and think about where we started. How much have you deviated from 10 to 15 minutes ago? It happens, right? So no wonder the neck hurts. And thank God we have a great medical system that can, tailor to those effects, right? There's plenty of great drugs out there. Is that, I wouldn't even tell you to do, but raise your hand if you want to live on drugs the rest of your life. No, that never happens, right? It's almost the opposite of what people want, and yet that's what they do. If something bothers them and they want to play 18 holes of golf, they're like, I'm going to take an Advil at the turn. Is that not true? I mean, we almost live that way. I mean, I bet you if I was to snoop through all your purses, I'd find something. Because we've all kind of been conditioned. Well, what if? Maybe I'll keep that Advil in there just in case I have a bad day. But I want to dive in and talk about those things. And I want you to look, I'm going to intersperse some things about what we do as a stretch practitioner, because that'll be a new concept for a lot of you as well. That there's such a thing as somebody who does the stretch for you, to you, as opposed to trying to do it on your own. But I want to dive in and talk about those things. And I want you to look, I'm going to intersperse some things about what we do as a stretch practitioner, because that'll be a new concept for a lot of you as well. That there's such a thing as somebody who does the stretch for you, to you, as opposed to trying to do it on your own. I encourage you to do this when you get home and go, yep, this is where I feel comfortable. Think how far you are away from the flattened, straight, upright spine. If you just did that every day, get against the door jamb. That's an easy place to find a flat wall. Get inside of the door jamb and just get up against it and go, okay, that's my new reset. I'm going to try to walk around like that for the next few minutes. System is so smart. It knows that its job is to not allow a joint to go too far beyond its natural motion. And if it were to do that, the muscles are trained to tighten up to protect you. They don't want you to rip a muscle, right? So if we go to a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, our brain says this is an injury. I don't know if this is Jaime stepping off the curb the wrong way or Brian stretching him in the right way. It just knows something's putting an impetus onto that muscle, and it has to make a decision. Do I protect and tighten, or do I let go and loosen? And most of the time our nervous system is so well trained that it's going to try to tighten and protect us. So if you started at 3, 3 should almost have a question mark behind it. Like if I were to say, I want you to let me know when you hit a 3 and I'm taking your muscle into that stretch, it would be like, I don't know, I guess that's a 3, maybe that's a 3. It's so soft of a stretch that you even question whether it's a stretch or not. Does that make sense? Your brain is making a decision right there. It's saying, is this okay? Should I get up and run away? Should I go into fight or flight mode, or should I go into parasympathetic mode and relax? And then from there, once that's well accepted, the brain is now like, okay, I'll let that muscle go a little further, and now we push to a 5. A 5 should be like moderate, middle of the road intensity. Mild to moderate, nothing massive, but just like, yeah, I can feel that. A 7 should be a deep stretch, and it should be a good deep stretch, but it should not be painful. There are 14, 15, and 16-year-olds who have horrendous posture. Any of you have grandkids? Have you ever seen the front of their face or just the top of their head? Right? Because if gravity alone was the cause of breakdown, we would have just as many people breaking down in this direction, right? We do something that keeps us in this position and we start folding in that direction over time. But at the end of the whole workshop, I'll send it all out to you to be able to see all this at your leisure as opposed to trying to memorize it. So nobody's forced to come in at any length of time. It's just, if you want to be in here, how often do you think you need to be here and how long you want to do it? It's not that hard for us to fix somebody in a short term and then be there to maintain them if they want that, or to send them back off to their own world again and see if they can do it on their own. But the problem is, just like you probably pointed out, indirect. Out of sight, out of mind. When you feel better, you forget. I can't tell you how many people stop coming because their reason for canceling is, I feel amazing, you did what I wanted, I'm back out playing pickleball 5 days a week, I don't have time to go get stretched. And that's the same guy that walked in my door like this going, I haven't played in 6 months. So just know that you'll get results no matter what. Stretching always works. It's not like it's some, does anybody here need to be convinced that stretching is good for them? I don't think you would have shown up for this workshop if you thought that, right? But it's just how you do it. And you're like, that's really what practitioner-assisted stretching is about, is that somebody else is going to come in and do the work for you. You just lay there. It's a really tough sell. I didn't bring my table out here to show, but one of the things that's very proprietary about what we do is Stretch Zone has a system of belts and straps and a specialized table and a methodology that nobody else can do because it is patented for isolating and targeting specific muscles without you having to do the work or without you feeling like you're going to fall off the table or have to resist what we do. Any of you guys stretch on your own? Keep doing it. But maybe impart some of the stuff you're going to learn today on how to do it on your own. The belts and the straps are kind of, well, not kind of important. They're very important. Like I said, I was a chiropractor for a long time. I used to adjust people and put their spine back in alignment, and then they'd go back out with tight muscles, and they'd go right back out of alignment again. And it was great for my business. Because they'd come back on dying again. Well, no crap. Did you stretch? No. What did you do? Nothing. You know, we just get used to letting somebody else fix us rather than learning how to do some of these things on our own. People hurt on the side opposite of their real problem. So if their left hip hurts, it's almost always a problem with the right hip. If their left shoulder hurts, it's always a problem with the right spine and the right shoulder. Now, the only time that's not true is if you get hit by a Mack truck right now walking across the parking lot. There's wood. Look both ways when you leave. want to make sure your neck moves really good so when you walk in. If you got hit directly by impact, sure, you're going to hurt where you got hurt, where you got hit. But chronic pain is the opposite of that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some things you can do for neck and shoulders. Obviously, that I looked at all your answers. And there's a lot of circled necks and shoulders on there, which means you're at the right place. But what I also noticed is there's a ton of hips and elbows and knees and backs that are also problematic, and that's very common when you have flexibility issues. It's when another muscle from a different area has to sort of compensate. Think about somebody who's walking like this because their hip hurts them. Their spinal muscles and their other leg muscles are taking the brunt of gravity now, and they have to overcompensate. Guilty of any of those 4 things? Let me say better. Raise your hand if you're not guilty of any of those things. And here's the problem. Erector spinae are postural muscles. There's a difference between a postural muscle and a voluntary muscle. And a lot of people don't know that, so they don't stretch appropriately. There's certain stretch times that you want to hold a stretch if it's a postural muscle as opposed to something that's voluntary like a bicep muscle. Well, it's not hard to do that. It's just not smart to do that. And a lot of people don't want to stop or take a night and go, well, we're going to drive halfway there and then get a hotel room and drive the rest of the next day, right? The reason it doesn't kill you right away is that it takes a long time for postural muscles to fatigue. All right, so we talked a little bit about the scalenes, but I wanted to make some sense out of them. There's a lot of them. They're little tiny fibers that go up and down like spaghetti strings from the front right up here. A lot of people don't know this. Your clavicle, that little tiny collarbone that some people have fractured or had a problem with when they were younger, dislocated, is the only bone that holds your entire arm onto your body. Everything else is muscle, which makes for an amazing dynamic range of motion that we have with our shoulders, right? We can do a lot of motions with a shoulder that we can't do with a knee. But because it's mostly muscle, no wonder people have shoulder pain. The thing about stretching, so if you are upright and against gravity while you're stretching, you are fighting your own fix. This is a hard thing for people to understand. But it really isn't when you think about it, right? If gravity's now on the joint, remember we said 300 muscles have to be used just to keep you upright. Well, now 300 of those muscles are tight. And you're trying to actively stretch 1 or 2 of them. It's so much better to be recumbent or completely supine when you do stretching. What you're doing is just taking our arms until gravity flattens them. You can do that just grabbing onto a railing. Do that on your stairwell, but I wouldn't go past the first step. You know, if the stairwell has a handrail, you can pull back on that. Just make sure that your handrails are anchored into the wall properly. And then you can use a rolled up towel. Once again, the most expensive invention ever, right? But you can roll it up and make it, you might need 2 of them if you have really forward posture. But let it sit right down the center of your spine so that your shoulder blades can fall back behind it. And then open up your posture, laying flat.